She dropped to her knees without making a sound. Not because she was tired, not because she had slipped, because the weight of the day had finally found her. The penthouse was silent in the way only expensive places ever were. Thick, insulated, sealed off from the noise of the city far below. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the skyline burned white and gold, glass towers slicing into the night like blades. Inside, everything gleamed, marble floors, chrome fixtures, furniture that felt more like sculpture than something meant to be touched. And in the center of it all, Elena Alvarez knelt alone, her cleaning cart beside her, gloved hands pressed flat against the cold stone floor. She had been careful all evening. She always was. The billionaire who owned this place was rarely here this late. But when he was, the rules tightened. No noise, no mistakes, no trace that another human being had existed in his space. Elena knew the stories. Everyone in the building did. Adrian Blackwood, tech founder, investor, the man whose name made markets twitch and people stand straighter. The man who lived 30 floors above the city and spoke to almost no one who wasn't paid to be there. Tonight, she was sure he wasn't home. She had checked the schedule. She had checked the lights. She had checked the private elevator log. Empty. So when the ache in her chest became too sharp to ignore, when the memory she had been forcing down all day surged back like a rising tide, she allowed herself to stop. Just for a moment, Elena pulled off one glove, then the other. Her fingers trembled as she pressed them to her eyes, wiping away tears before they could fall. She did not sob. She never did. Sound was dangerous. Sound meant questions. Sound meant being seen. She breathed instead, slow, controlled. In through her nose, out through her mouth. Her lips moved. "Come on," she whispered to herself. "Just a minute, that's all." She leaned back on her heels and stared at her reflection in the black glass of the windows. A woman in her mid-30s. Dark hair pulled tight into a bun. Uniform spotless, pressed, anonymous. The kind of woman people looked through instead of at. The kind of woman no one imagined had a life beyond these walls. Elena reached into her apron pocket and pulled out her phone. The screen was cracked. The case faded. One unread message glowed at the top. They turned off the power again. Her throat tightened. She closed her eyes. Somewhere far beneath the marble and steel, her apartment sat in darkness. A small two-bedroom she shared with her mother and her son. Candles on the counter. Cold food in the fridge. Another night of pretending everything was fine. She slid the phone back into her pocket and pressed her forehead to her knuckles. "I'll fix it," she whispered. "I always do." Behind her, unseen, a security camera adjusted its angle. And 30 feet away, behind a wall of darkened glass, Adrian Blackwood stopped walking. He had not planned to come home early. The dinner had ended abruptly. Another forced smile. Another hollow conversation about quarterly projections and market optimism. He had left before dessert, his driver following the familiar route up the private drive, through secured gates, into the silent tower that carried his name on the lower floors, but felt more like a monument than a home. Adrian liked control. He liked order. He liked knowing exactly what existed within his walls. That was why the movement on the security feed caught his eye. He stood in the small glass-walled office, just off the main living space, jacket draped over a chair, tie loosened, one hand braced against the desk. The monitors in front of him displayed different angles of the penthouse. Habit, not paranoia. He had built the system himself after a break-in years earlier. No blind spots, no assumptions. And now, on screen 3, something unexpected appeared. The cleaning woman, kneeling, still. Adrian frowned. She wasn't supposed to be there this late. His jaw tightened automatically, irritation flaring before thought. He reached for the tablet to call building management, then stopped. Because she didn't move. She didn't scroll her phone. She didn't eat, smoke, or rest lazily. She knelt as if the floor itself had pulled her down. Adrian watched her shoulders rise and fall. watched her remove her gloves with deliberate care, as though even this small act required discipline. Watched her press her fingers to her face and whisper something he couldn't hear. For reasons he couldn't explain, he didn't look away. He muted the soft notification tone in the room. The penthouse settled back into silence, the kind that usually comforted him. But now it felt altered. Elena shifted, sitting back, and the overhead lights caught her face fully for the first time. Adrian leaned closer to the screen without realizing it. She looked tired, not the exaggerated exhaustion people wore when they wanted sympathy. Something deeper, bone level, earned. She pulled out her phone, read a message, closed her eyes. Then she said something else. Adrian activated the audio feed. "Always do," her voice murmured, barely louder than breath. The words landed harder than they should have. He straightened, unease threading through his chest. This was not what he expected to witness in his home. He had spoken about empathy on stages, donated millions, delivered speeches on resilience. He had never meant to see it like this, raw, unguarded. Unaware of an audience, she stood abruptly, wiping her face, professionalism snapping back into place like armor. She glanced around the room, checking for signs she had been seen. Adrian held his breath. She didn't look toward the camera. She lifted her cart and pushed it toward the kitchen, resuming her work with precise efficiency. Cloth across counter, spray, wipe. No hesitation, as if the moment had never existed. Adrian remained still, for the first time in years. Something inside him resisted being categorized. He had built an empire on observation, on data, on patterns. But this refused to fit inside anything he understood. He considered stepping out, announcing himself, pretending he had just arrived. He considered doing nothing. That was easier. That was familiar. Instead, he stayed where he was. He watched. Elena moved through the penthouse like a shadow, efficient, invisible. She aligned objects exactly as she found them. Polished surfaces no one would touch for days. Adjusted a picture frame on a side table that leaned slightly, stepping back to ensure it was straight. She paused near a shelf by the window. A photograph rested there, Adrian younger, flanked by investors, all confidence and smiles. She lifted it, wiped the glass carefully, then hesitated. Her gaze lingered. Adrian felt an unexpected flush of discomfort. Being looked at, truly looked at, was something he controlled. This was different. She wasn't admiring him. She wasn't judging him. She was studying. Elena set the photo back in place, straightened it, and murmured almost absently, "Must be nice." The words held no bitterness, only fact. Adrian swallowed. He didn't understand why that unsettled him more than anger ever had. She continued down the hallway toward his bedroom suite. Adrian's pulse quickened. That space was private, off limits, not because of security, but because it was the last place that still felt like his. He told himself the staff never entered unless he was away for extended periods. Then he checked the schedule again and realized he had requested it. Weeks ago, absent-mindedly, automatically, Elena entered the bedroom. The camera angle shifted. She stopped. The bed was unmade, not messy, just lived in. The quiet evidence of a man who slept alone. The sheet folded back, the pillow indented. Elena hesitated, then began working. She smoothed the sheet, fluffed the pillow, straightened the throw at the foot of the bed. Then she noticed something on the nightstand. A small object, easy to miss. She picked it up. Adrian's breath caught. A hospital wristband, white plastic, creased, old. He had forgotten it was there. Elena turned it over, reading the faded print. Her brow furrowed. She did not smile. She did not pry. She placed it back exactly where it had been. But when she spoke, her voice had changed. Soft, careful. "Some things don't wash off," she said quietly, as if speaking to the room itself. The words hit Adrian like a hand closing around his ribs. He didn't know how long he stood there after she left the bedroom. Minutes blurred. City lights shifted. Somewhere, a clock ticked. Eventually, Elena finished her work. She returned to the living area, parked her cart neatly by the door, and took one last look around. A habit, making sure nothing was missed. She exhaled. "Okay," she whispered. "That's it." She reached for her gloves and stopped. Her eyes drifted, inexplicably, toward the dark glass wall of Adrian's office. For a split second, something flickered across her face. A feeling, a sense. Adrian's heart slammed against his chest. Elena shook her head, dismissing the thought, pulled on her gloves, and pushed her cart toward the service elevator, unaware that she had just been seen more clearly than anyone in years. And behind the glass, Adrian Blackwood realized something that unsettled him deeply. For the first time, he didn't want to forget what he had witnessed. The elevator doors closed softly behind her, and that was the moment he decided he needed to know who she really was. And for the first time, Adrian understood that what was changing his life was not what Elena had done that night in the penthouse. It was who she was every day after. The review moved faster than either of them expected. By the end of the week, Elena was called into a conference room she had only ever cleaned, never sat in. The table felt too long. The chairs sat too far apart. 3 managers waited with folders already open, their expressions carefully neutral. Adrian did not attend. That choice was deliberate. He could have ended it with a single phone call, one quiet instruction, one unmistakable reminder of who owned the building, who funded half its renovations, who signed checks large enough to erase discomfort. But Elena had been right. If he intervened, it would confirm everything the letter implied. So he stayed away, and that was the hardest part. Elena sat straight, hands folded, answering every question without defensiveness. She spoke plainly about her schedule, her work, the night her mother fell, and the help she received. She did not embellish. She did not minimize. She did not apologize for surviving. When asked directly whether she had accepted inappropriate financial assistance from a resident, she paused only long enough to choose precision over pride. "I accepted help during a medical emergency," she said. "No conditions, no expectations, no change in my conduct before or after." One of the managers leaned back. "And you believe that was appropriate?" Elena met their gaze evenly. "I believe refusing help that keeps your parent alive is a luxury not everyone can afford." Silence followed. When the meeting ended, no decision was announced. Elena walked out with her head high and her future uncertain. That night, the penthouse felt heavier than usual. Adrian stood by the window long after the city lights blurred into abstraction. He told himself the discomfort was the cost of doing the right thing. He still hated it. The next morning, the call came. The complaint had been dismissed. No evidence, no violation, no further action. Elena listened quietly, thanked the caller, and ended the call without celebration. She sat at the small kitchen table in her apartment, her mother asleep in the next room, her son already at school. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in months, she let herself cry, not from fear, from release. That evening, when she arrived at the penthouse, Adrian noticed immediately. "You're lighter," he said. She nodded. "It's over." He exhaled, a sound that surprised even him. "Come," he said after a moment. She hesitated. "I still have work." "It can wait," he replied. "For 5 minutes." She studied him, then set her cart aside. They stood by the window together. The city stretched beneath them, alive, indifferent. "I almost quit," Elena said quietly. "Why didn't you?" She considered it. "Because quitting would have meant letting them decide who I am." Adrian nodded. "I know that feeling." She glanced at him. "You do?" "Yes," he said. "I just learned it from a different direction." They stood there, not touching, not rushing, sharing a silence that no longer felt like distance. After that night, things shifted. Not suddenly, but undeniably. Adrian began using rooms he had avoided for years. The dining table no longer sat untouched. The couch bore the weight of evenings spent listening instead of thinking. The penthouse became less like a monument and more like a place that breathed. Elena noticed the small changes. Fresh groceries appeared without comment. A lamp replaced the harsh overhead light in the living room. The hospital wristband vanished from the nightstand, replaced by nothing at all. Some things no longer needed reminders. One evening, as Elena finished her work, Adrian spoke from the other side of the room. "I'm stepping down from the board," he said. She paused mid-motion. "That's big. It's overdue. What will you do?" He thought carefully. "Learn how to stay." She smiled, not teasing, understanding. Weeks passed. Elena's mother healed slowly, stubbornly. Her son began doing homework at the kitchen table again, instead of by candlelight. The apartment filled with quiet signs of stability. Fresh fruit, clean sheets, laughter that didn't feel borrowed. Adrian visited once, briefly, respectfully. He brought soup. He left early. He did not cross lines that mattered. One night, months later, Elena arrived at the penthouse and found something unexpected. The cleaning cart was gone. In its place sat 2 glasses and a bottle of wine on the counter. Adrian stood nearby, jacket off, sleeves rolled, looking uncharacteristically unsure. "You're not working tonight," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "Since when do you decide that?" "Since I asked," he replied, "and since you're allowed to say no." She studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled. "5 minutes," she said. "That's all I promised you last time." "I'll take it." They sat, they talked, not about work, not about money, not about the things that had first drawn them into each other's orbit. They talked about music, about books, about the quiet relief of choosing differently after years of habit. When 5 minutes passed, Elena stood. "I should go," she said. "Yes," Adrian replied. She reached the door, then paused. "Adrian?" "Yes?" "You didn't save me," she said. "Just so we're clear." He met her gaze. "I know." "You saw me," she continued. "That's different." He nodded. "It changed everything." She smiled softly and left. The door closed. This time, the silence did not return. Months later, the tower hosted a charity gala. Lights, cameras, names whispered with reverence. Adrian attended briefly, shaking hands, answering questions with practiced ease. At the edge of the room, Elena stood in a simple dress, no uniform, no invisibility. She was there by choice, not duty. Their eyes met across the crowd. No one else noticed the moment. They did. Later, as the city settled into night, they stood once more by the window of the penthouse where it had all begun. "You know," Elena said, "I really did think I was alone that night." "I know," Adrian replied. "But you weren't," she continued. "And neither were you." He considered that. "You changed my life," he said quietly. She shook her head. "No, you were ready for it to change." He smiled, accepting the truth. Below them, the city moved on, unaware, uncaring, endlessly alive. And in the quiet above it, 2 people stood not as a billionaire and a cleaning lady, not as benefactor and recipient, not as roles assigned by circumstance, but simply as themselves. Seen. At last. The elevator doors closed softly behind her, and that was the moment he decided he needed to know who she really was. Adrian did not move for a long time. The office lights remained off. The city pulsed beyond the glass, distant and indifferent. He stood with his hands braced against the desk, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the black rectangle where the security feed had gone still. Needing to know someone had never been part of his design. He knew numbers. He knew leverage. He knew how to extract truth from markets and from people. But this urge did not feel like strategy. It felt exposed, unguarded, dangerous. He exhaled and reached for the tablet anyway. Her name was there, buried inside a staffing roster he had never bothered to read. Assigned twice a week. Evening rotation. Cleared. Background check passed. No flags, no notes. Elena Alvarez. The name stayed with him longer than it should have. He shut the tablet down and stepped into the living space she had just left. The air felt different. Cleaner, yes, but also warmer, as though something human had moved through it and left a trace that polish could not erase. Adrian crossed the room slowly, noticing details he usually ignored. The picture frame she had straightened. The faint citrus scent of the cleaner she used, different from the default supplies stocked by the building. The pillow on the couch aligned perfectly with the armrest. She had cared. That realization lodged beneath his skin. He turned toward the hallway, then stopped. The bedroom door stood open. The bed immaculate now. The wristband exactly where he had left it. Some things don't wash off. The words returned without permission. He sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress dipping beneath his weight, and stared at the nightstand. The hospital band had been there for months, a relic from a time he refused to name. He had told himself it was nothing, a procedure, a reminder of resilience. He had told everyone he was fine. She had not asked. She had not judged. She had simply known enough to be gentle. Adrian stood abruptly, irritation flaring at himself. This was absurd. She was staff. He was her employer. There were boundaries, ethical, legal, practical. He crossed back into the living room and picked up his phone. Then he put it down. He did not call building management. He did not send an email. He did not summon an assistant. Instead, he waited. The next evening arrived under a low sky, heavy with the promise of rain. Elena entered the tower at precisely 6:47. Her badge scanned. Her cart rolled silently across the polished floor. She nodded to the concierge without breaking stride, her expression neutral, composed. She had slept poorly. The power had been restored that morning only after she begged the landlord for another extension. Her mother's breathing had been shallow all night. Her son pretended not to notice the tension, talking too loudly about school to fill the quiet. Elena did not carry her worries into other people's spaces. That was a rule she lived by. The private elevator rose smoothly, numbers lighting one by one. When the doors opened, she stepped into the penthouse and did what she always did first. She paused, listened. Silence. Good. She set her cart down and began. The living area was already immaculate, but she worked methodically, as if perfection were not a destination, but a discipline. She wiped, aligned, polished. She moved around the furniture with practiced ease, never bumping, never rushing. She did not know she was being watched again. This time, Adrian stood in the hallway instead of the office. He had positioned himself deliberately, out of sight, close enough to hear, but not be seen. The choice unsettled him. It felt like hiding. He had never hidden inside his own home. Elena hummed softly as she worked. Not a song he recognized. Something simple, familiar. The sound threaded through the vast space, shrinking it, turning the penthouse from a showroom into a place someone actually lived. Adrian leaned against the wall, arms crossed, waiting for himself to leave. He didn't. Elena reached the kitchen island and paused. She frowned, noticing a smudge she must have missed the night before. She scrubbed it away, then froze. Her eyes lifted. She sensed him. Adrian stepped forward before he could reconsider. "Elena," he said. Her body stiffened. She turned slowly, cloth still in her hand. For a fraction of a second, her composure slipped. Surprise, calculation, readiness, all passing across her face like weather. "Yes," she said. Her voice was steady. "I didn't mean to startle you," Adrian said. "I thought you knew I was home." "I checked the log," she replied carefully. "It said you weren't. It was wrong." She nodded once, accepting the answer without comment. She placed the cloth on the counter, straightened her shoulders, and waited. Adrian noticed she did not apologize. He also noticed she did not leave. "I saw you last night," he said. The words settled between them. Elena did not flinch. She did not look away. She met his gaze directly. "Yes," she said. I was working. I mean, he stopped, adjusted. In the living room. I know where I was, she said. A corner of his mouth twitched despite himself. You weren't supposed to be alone that late. I thought I was, she replied. If that's a problem, I can change my schedule. No, Adrian said too quickly. That's not, he paused again, aware of how unfamiliar this felt. He was used to directing conversations, not navigating them. You seemed upset, he finished. There it was. Elena's eyes sharpened. Did I disrupt anything? No. Did I damage anything? No. Then I don't see the issue. Adrian held her gaze, something close to admiration stirring uncomfortably in his chest. She was not defensive. She was precise. I didn't call you in to reprimand you, he said. I wanted to make sure you were all right. The silence stretched. Elena blinked once. Twice. That's kind, she said finally, but unnecessary. I disagree. She studied him now, really studied him, and Adrian felt the balance tilt. Up close, she saw what screens never showed. The faint shadows beneath his eyes. The tension he carried like a second spine. You don't know me, she said. No, he admitted. I don't. And that's usually how people prefer it. He nodded. Usually. She hesitated, then gestured toward the rest of the penthouse. If you'll excuse me, I have work to finish. Adrian stepped aside, allowing her to pass. As she moved by him, the faint citrus scent followed. He watched her resume her routine with the same quiet diligence as before. He told himself that was the end of it. It wasn't. They fell into a strange pattern over the next hour. Elena worked. Adrian remained nearby, sometimes seated, sometimes pacing. He did not hover. He did not interfere. He simply stayed. At one point, she spoke without looking up. You don't usually stay. I know. Is something wrong? No. Then why are you? He considered the question honestly. Because this is my home, he said. And I realized I don't know what happens in it. She glanced at him then, something thoughtful crossing her face. That's because you don't let it happen, she said. The comment was gentle, not accusatory. He absorbed it slowly. When she finished, she returned her supplies to the cart and removed her gloves. She did not rush to leave. I should go, she said. Yes, Adrian replied. Of course. She hesitated again. About last night, I apologize if I overstepped. You didn't. I spoke out loud. You spoke to yourself. She nodded, accepting that. She pushed her cart toward the service elevator. Elena, Adrian said. She turned. I won't watch the cameras while you're here, he said, if that matters. Her expression softened, just slightly. It does. She left. The doors closed. Adrian stood alone in the penthouse that now felt irreversibly changed. The following week passed differently from the ones before. Adrian found himself arriving home earlier on the evenings Elena worked. Not intentionally. He told himself it was coincidence. Meetings ended sooner. Calls ran shorter. Dinners were skipped entirely. Elena noticed. She noticed the lights on, the presence, the way he kept a respectful distance, never intruding, never pretending not to see her. One evening, as rain lashed against the windows, she paused by the kitchen and rubbed her wrist unconsciously. Adrian noticed. Are you hurt? He asked. No, she said. Just old things. He nodded, understanding more than she knew. Another night, she found him standing at the window long after midnight, staring down at the city. She did not ask why. She simply said, it looks different from up here. It does, he agreed. Lonelier. He glanced at her, surprised. She shrugged. Big spaces echo. He had no answer for that. The conversations remained brief, careful, honest. Then one night, something changed. Elena's phone rang. She froze when she saw the name. She answered, her voice low. Yes? Adrian did not mean to listen. He couldn't help it. No, I can't leave now, she said. I know, I understand. She closed her eyes. I'll come after, she said. Please, just wait. The call ended. Elena stood still, her hand trembling around the phone. "Is everything okay?" Adrian asked quietly. She hesitated. "No," she said. He waited. "My mother," Elena continued. "She fell this morning. The clinic says she needs tests. They won't begin without payment." Adrian felt the familiar instinct rise. Solve it, fix it, write a check. "How much?" he asked. Elena's head snapped up. "No. I didn't mean I know what you meant," she said, "and I appreciate it, but I don't want that." "Why?" "Because I don't want to owe you," she said, "and I don't want my problems to become charity." Adrian studied her face, saw the pride, the fear beneath it. "What if it's not charity?" he asked. "What if it's help?" She shook her head. Help always costs something. He thought of the wristband, of her words. "Not always," he said. They stood there, rain hammering the glass, the city blurred beyond. Elena inhaled shakily. "I need to finish." Adrian nodded. "Go." She did. But as the elevator doors closed that night, Adrian knew the careful distance between them was thinning. And he also knew that whatever line remained was about to be crossed, not by intention, but by necessity. And he also knew that whatever line remained was about to be crossed, not by intention, but by necessity. The necessity arrived the next evening, quiet and unannounced. Elena did not come. By 7:30, Adrian had already canceled 2 calls he normally would have taken without hesitation. He told himself it was coincidence, traffic, a shift change, a sick day that would be logged later. By 8, the penthouse remained untouched. The faint citrus scent was gone. The pillows sat misaligned. A glass he had left near the window still bore the soft outline of his fingerprints. By 8:30, something cold settled behind his ribs. He checked the roster, no update. He checked the building system, no badge scan. Adrian stood near the window, phone in hand, staring down at the city as if answers might rise from it. He did not understand why her absence felt louder than her presence ever had. He told himself to wait. He didn't. He opened the staff directory, hesitated only once, then tapped her number. It rang. Once, twice, voicemail. "Elena," he said after a pause, the sound of her name unfamiliar in his mouth. "It's Adrian. You didn't come in tonight. I just wanted to make sure you're all right. Please call me." He ended the call and regretted it immediately. That night, he did not sleep. Morning arrived pale and gray, rain clinging to the edges of the sky. Adrian stood in the shower longer than usual, letting the water run hot, his thoughts circling a woman who should not occupy this much space in his mind. By 10, he had delegated an entire meeting to his executive team. By 11, he was in the car. "Where to?" the driver asked. Adrian hesitated. Then, East Ridge Medical. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and old coffee. Adrian had not been inside one since his own discharge months earlier. The memories returned uninvited. Beeping monitors, hushed voices, the peculiar vulnerability of wearing a paper bracelet that announced your fragility to the world. He moved through the lobby unnoticed, a rare thing. No one expected Adrian Blackwood here. He preferred it that way. At the admissions desk, he stopped. "I'm looking for Elena Alvarez," he said. "Her mother may have been admitted last night." The clerk glanced up, eyes scanning his face briefly before returning to the screen. "1 moment." Adrian waited. The seconds stretched. "Yes," the clerk said finally. "Room 417, geriatric wing." Adrian thanked her and turned toward the elevators. Halfway down the corridor, he saw her. Elena sat in a hard plastic chair outside the room, her coat folded across her lap, her hair no longer perfectly pinned. She looked smaller here, folded inward. Her hands were clasped tightly, knuckles pale. She had not slept. Adrian slowed, giving her time to notice him on her own. She did. Her head snapped up, eyes widening, not with fear, but with shock. "You shouldn't be here," she said, standing abruptly. "I know," he replied, "but you didn't answer your phone." "I didn't think I know," he repeated gently. She glanced toward the room, then back at him. Her shoulders sagged, exhaustion finally breaking through the careful control she wore like armor. She fractured her hip, Elena said quietly. They're monitoring her heart, the tests. She stopped, swallowing hard. They won't schedule the surgery until the deposit clears, she finished. Adrian nodded once. How much? She looked at him sharply. No. I'm not offering, he said. I'm asking so I understand the situation. Her jaw tightened. Understanding doesn't change it. Sometimes it does. She turned away, pacing once before stopping. I don't want this, she said. I don't want you here, seeing this part of my life. Adrian held his ground. I saw it already. She faced him again, anger flashing briefly before dissolving into something more dangerous. Honesty. Then you know I can't accept your money, she said. I'm not offering it as charity, he replied, and I'm not asking for anything in return. That's not how this works. It can be. She laughed softly, without humor. You live in a world where rules bend for you. He didn't deny it. I live in a world where if I don't pay by Friday, they send my mother home, she said. So no, this doesn't bend. Adrian looked past her, through the open door, where an elderly woman lay asleep beneath thin blankets. Tubes, monitors. The quiet dignity of someone who had lived long enough to accept dependence without surrender. She raised you, he said, not a question. Yes. Alone? Elena hesitated, then nodded. Something shifted inside Adrian. Not pity, recognition. She taught me to work, Elena continued. To never ask for what I couldn't repay. Adrian met her gaze. What if repayment isn't money? She shook her head. There's always a cost. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Then let me choose to pay it. The silence stretched, heavy, raw. Finally, Elena exhaled, the fight draining from her shoulders. If you do this, she said, it has to be clean. No favors, no leverage, no unspoken expectations. Adrian nodded without hesitation. Agreed. She studied him, searching for something. A crack. A lie. She found none. Okay, she whispered. Adrian turned immediately, pulling out his phone. He made the call. He spoke quietly, efficiently. Names exchanged, numbers confirmed. A promise given. When he ended the call, Elena was watching him with an expression she didn't recognize in herself. They'll schedule the surgery today, Adrian said. Everything else will be handled. Her breath hitched. Thank you, she said. He nodded. You don't owe me anything. She almost argued. Instead, she sat heavily in the chair, pressing her hands to her face before straightening again. I should hate this, she admitted. I should feel small. You're neither, Adrian said. You're doing what you must. She looked at him then, really looked, and something softened between them. Not romance. Not yet. Trust. The surgery was scheduled for that afternoon. Adrian stayed. He did not return to work. He did not take calls. He sat in the hallway with Elena, sharing bitter vending machine coffee and a silence that felt earned rather than awkward. At one point, she spoke without looking at him. You're not what I expected, she said. What did you expect? A man who solves problems so he doesn't have to feel them. He smiled faintly. I used to. What changed? He thought of the penthouse, the cameras, the moment she knelt on his floor. You reminded me I could still see, he said. She nodded, accepting the answer without pressing. The surgery ended after sunset. The doctor emerged calm and reassuring. Recovery would be long, but successful. Elena closed her eyes, relief washing through her so visibly that Adrian felt it himself. Later, when her mother slept again, Elena walked Adrian to the elevator. This doesn't change things, she said quietly. I know. I still clean your apartment. Yes. And I still don't want special treatment. You won't get it. She smiled then, small, genuine. Thank you, she said again. The days that followed felt different. Elena returned to work, though her hours shifted. Adrian adjusted his schedule without comment. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they didn't. The ease between them grew naturally, without pressure. One evening, Elena noticed something new in the penthouse. The cameras in the living area were gone. She looked at Adrian. "I don't need them there," he said. "Why?" "Because trust," he replied simply. Her throat tightened. Another night, she found a chair placed by the window, a book left open on the table. "You read now?" she asked. "I listen more," he said. The change was subtle but undeniable. Adrian began to live in his space instead of passing through it. Elena, in turn, allowed herself to exist there without shrinking. But the world beyond the penthouse did not remain quiet. One afternoon, Elena received a letter at work, official, stamped. She read it once. Then, again. Her hand shook. That night she arrived later than usual. Adrian noticed immediately. "What happened?" he asked. She handed him the letter. An audit, a review, an anonymous complaint, allegations of unprofessional conduct, inappropriate boundaries, favoritism. Adrian read it carefully. Anger flared, sharp, immediate. "They're trying to remove you," he said. "I know." "Because of me, because people notice things," she replied, "and they don't like them." Adrian folded the letter. "I can stop this." She shook her head. "No. If you do, it proves them right." He clenched his jaw. "Then what do we do?" Elena met his gaze, steady, unafraid. "We tell the truth," she said, "and we let it stand." Adrian studied her, seeing again the strength that had first drawn his attention. "You could lose your job," he said. "I've lost worse," she replied. The line between them trembled. Not crossed, but tested. And for the first time, Adrian understood that what was changing his life was not what Elena had done that night in the penthouse. It was who she was every day after.